BYU football fall camp practices roll on into week 2. Mitch Harper here with KSL Sports in Provo. And, once again, the quarterback battle continues to dominate the conversation, the headlines here at fall camp. We got to see all 4 quarterbacks. There's, of course, 3 quarterbacks contending for that number 1 job, as Aaron Roderick has discussed. But we did get to see all 4 quarterbacks today. The first quarterback that we saw was Emerson Geilman. It wasn't a team portion, but it was a situational deal. And Geilman honestly had a deep ball to Dominique McKenzie. That was a nice pass, and it was a really good completion from Emerson Geilman. He's shown some signs that, again, down the road, he could be someone that BYU wants to invest in and develop and see what he can become as a quarterback. Now, when it got to kind of the quarterback battle and the 3 quarterbacks that are contending for the job, the first quarterback that we saw was McCae Hillstead, and it was the first time during camp in these media observation periods. We've only seen 3 days worth of media windows since camp started. Today was day 6, and it's the first time we saw McCae Hillstead with the first team offensive line. And I thought McCae Hillstead honestly looked pretty good. And, his first play was a handoff to LJ Martin. But, I thought that he played pretty well. The timing of some of his passes, he had a really nice pass over the top of the defense to Carson Ryan for a touchdown. McCae Hillstead had a nice pass to the sideline. The accuracy, even some passes that were incomplete, they were in the ball placement, I thought was really good, to where the defenders could not get a chance to generate a takeaway. So I thought McCae Hillstead looked really good today. And Bear Bachmeier was the second quarterback that we saw, but he was with the second team offensive line. And then we saw Treyson Bourguet. He was the third quarterback with the first team offensive line. Now, out of all the 3 windows that, again, the media has witnessed through 6 days of practice, Treyson Bourguet has been the one quarterback that's always been with the first team offensive line. So take that with what you will. But just kind of an interesting note that so far through the, into week 2, settling into the dog days of camp, that's been going on for kind of the quarterback battle. But I thought Hillstead looked good today. And it's been kind of interesting. The first day I said Baird. The second window, I said Treyson, and then this one, McCae. And I think all 3 of these quarterbacks are been doing a solid job, I think, for BYU thus far as they continue to settle in to fall camp practices here at the Zions Bank practice facility. Some other offensive personnel notes. Got the chance to see Parker Kingston for the first time. He was, just haven't seen him in media observation windows so far in camp. We saw him today competing with what looked to be the first team offense. Same with Waylon Lapuaho, left guard for the Cougars. Aaron Roderick noted last week that it was just a very minor thing for Waylon, but he was competing in practices today at that left guard spot. Behind him, Trevin Osler, someone that, been kind of high on for some time. He's been a player that has occasionally in spring practices over the years gotten first team snaps. Saw Trevin at times with the first team offensive line as well. So a promising player in the interior of that offensive line. I talked with tight ends coach Kevin Gilbride today, and I was kind of watching the tight ends closer than usual, knowing that I'd be speaking with Coach Gilbride. And I thought Carson Ryan continues to impress. Roderick noted him last week, saying that he's the standout that immediately he said when asked who are standing out at tight end. Also, Keanu Need. Keanu Need is a big-bodied prospect, transferred in from Weber State in New Mexico. He did have a ball thrown his way, though, that he just couldn't haul it in. Treyson Bourguet threw it to him. It was a little bit to the right of Keanu Need, so a little bit behind him. He just couldn't gather it, and it was an incomplete pass, but he probably should have caught that ball. But, it could have been a little bit more on target, but that's kind of getting a little bit nitpicky. But some other tight ends I think that have caught my attention at times. Will Zundel, we've seen him, number 32, a redshirt freshman out of American Fork. I think he's shown, decent. He's progressing. I think the key for that tight end group is going to be, who can kind of emerge as consistent guys, week after week that they can count on beyond a Carson Ryan and potentially a Keanu Need. But those seem like the kind of the top 2 guys. Didn't see Ethan Erickson going through team portion today at that tight end position. The defense had, I think, some success, though, towards the tail end of practice, particularly against Treyson Bourguet and Bear Bachmeier. Keanu Tanuvasa, he was a force from the interior of the defensive line, and he looked like a guy that Jay Hill has talked about being the best defensive tackle in college football potentially this season. There were moments where not the greatest snaps. Bruce Mitchell had a really bad snap that sailed over the head of Treyson Bourguet. Kalani Sitake addressed that in his post-media availability, saying it was only one bad snap, and that Bruce is getting adjusted to life going up against Keanu on the first team defense. So that could be a positive for Bruce, is that you're probably not going to face many D tackles that are as good as the guy that you're going to be lining up against in practice every single day. So maybe an iron sharpens iron sort of deal, but that was something that was of note coming out of this practice. Going back to the tight ends, McCae Hillstead did have a touchdown pass to Keanu Need inside the red zone, which was a good ball as well. Another offensive player that kind of caught my attention was Cody Hagan. He caught a screen, and just his athleticism, his speed, he's going to be a factor. I've been talking about Hagan for some time now, since really he signed with BYU out of Corner Canyon, but he's going to make an impact. And again, it was a simple kind of pitch and catch screen, but the shiftiness, you saw that athleticism and that speed, that explosiveness, that was on display on that catch. Another guy that looked pretty explosive today was Tausili Akana. His first step, elite. He got into the backfield, generated a sack. He was excellent, I thought, today in generating pressure today. The whole defense, Jack Kelly got a pressure on Treyson Bourguet that was in fact ruled a sack. Obviously didn't make contact with Treyson. Tanuvasa got what would have been a sack. So the defense pretty much, I think, kind of won the day if you want to give an ultimate winner. They just didn't have as much success when McCae Hillstead was in. But again, sometimes you got to look at these sort of things, and there's situations that they're trying to achieve, the coaching staff and things like that. So, who do you define a winner? It's tough to really say. One more defensive guy that kind of caught my attention, the defensive tackle position, as Jay Hill noted, is a little bit thinner now with Justin Kirkland still dealing with a knee injury. Ulavai Fetuli, he got a sack. At number 99, a true freshman out of La Habra, California. I think he's a player to maybe keep an eye on. There's some young defensive tackles that could be promising. It's just, are you ready to turn to them and rely on them in the season? Keanu Tanuvasa is going to be the leader, the mainstay, and he's going to be probably someone that's probably playing a majority of the snaps, but you'd like to keep some bodies fresh from the interior of that defensive line, and maybe Ulavai could be someone that gets into that mix and that rotation for BYU. Crew Clark, true freshman walk-on, he had a nice pass batted down to the line of scrimmage on Bear Bachmeier. That closed out the practice today. I thought that caught my attention. Another true freshman, Keanu DeVries, getting a little bit of run, that kind of nickel spot for BYU, that inside corner. Former, Weber High standout. He was someone that's a true freshman, came back from a mission. He participated in spring practices. Last year, he gray-shirted. He's playing well. I think DeVries is going to be a really good player for BYU. I've kind of always looked at him more of a safety. That's where he thrived at the high school ranks, but making a little bit of a name for himself at the cornerback position. No matter where he plays, I think he's going to be a really good player for BYU. Some of the people that were kind of in attendance today, I saw another return missionary, former Corner Canyon High linebacker Owen Borg. He was in attendance here at practice today. I think he's got a bright future ahead for him. He just got recently back from a mission, but one to keep an eye on down the road for BYU. But all in all, kind of, day 6 here at BYU football fall camp practices. Some good stuff to kind of learn once again on this BYU football team, as they're now 25 days away until they take on Portland State just down the street at Lavelle Edwards Stadium. That kickoff, of course, will be 6 o'clock on KSL News Radio. We'll have coverage that day starting at noon with Cougar Sports Saturday, and then the game can be watched, of course, on ESPN Plus and heard on KSL News Radio. More fall camp coverage on the Cougar Tracks podcast, KSLSports.com, KSL5 TV, KSL News Radio, and the KSL Sports Zone. So we've got you covered, wall-to-wall coverage of BYU football throughout the 2025 season right here on KSL Sports. So signing off from Provo, I'll talk to you next time here at BYU football camp. It's right here on KSLSports.com.